I need you to understand something before I start. What happened out there didn't begin with fear. It began with quiet. The kind of quiet that feels earned, like you finally outrun whatever's been chasing you your whole life. I thought that's what I had. 3 nights alone in a cabin, deep enough in the woods that even the wind sounded distant. I remember thinking I was safe. I remember thinking nothing could find me there. I was wrong about that. And by the time I realized how wrong, it was already too close. I went out there because I needed to be alone. That's the simple version. The truth is messier. I had burned through too many chances, said things you can't unsay, let silence grow where something better should have been. So I packed what I could carry, drove until the road turned to gravel, then dirt, then something that barely deserved to be called a path. The cabin wasn't much. Wood that creaked when the temperature dropped, a single bed, a stove that complained before it worked. But it felt honest. No distractions, no voices, just me and the kind of stillness that makes you hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. The first night, I slept better than I had in months. That should have been my first warning. It was too easy. The second day started slow. Coffee tasted sharper out there, like it had something to prove. I walked the perimeter of the clearing just to get a feel for the place. Trees stood too close together beyond a certain point, like they were keeping something in or out. I told myself I was being dramatic. City habits don't disappear overnight. Every snapped twig sounded louder than it should. Every shadow lingered a second too long. But nothing moved. Nothing watched. At least, not that I could see. I laughed it off at one point, actually laughed, said out loud, "You wanted quiet. This is what quiet feels like." It didn't echo. That bothered me more than it should have. That night, I heard something. Not loud. Not crashing through the woods like you'd expect from a deer or a bear. It was deliberate. A single step, then nothing, then another, somewhere else. I sat up in bed, listening, trying to map it in my head. It circled, I think, or maybe it just wanted me to believe that. I told myself it was an animal passing through, something curious, maybe catching my scent. I didn't get up, didn't check the window. I remember pulling the blanket tighter like that could do anything. The sound stopped eventually. Or maybe I just fell asleep despite it. In the morning, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Almost. But there were prints. Not right up against the cabin, not yet. At the edge of the clearing, where the dirt stayed soft. Too large for a dog. Too narrow for a bear, and wrong somehow. The stride didn't match anything I knew. I crouched there longer than I should have, tracing the shape with my eyes, trying to force it into something familiar. That's what we do when we're scared. We rename things until they fit into a safer category. I said wolf out loud, even though I knew wolves didn't walk like that, even though I knew they didn't come this close alone. I should have left then, packed up, driven back, told myself I got what I came for. But I didn't, because part of me needed to prove I wasn't afraid. The third day dragged. Time felt stretched, like the air itself was resisting movement. I stayed closer to the cabin, found reasons not to wander far. Fixed things that didn't need fixing. Checked the door latch more times than I'll admit. Every now and then, I'd catch myself staring at the tree line, waiting for something to break it. Nothing ever did. That was the worst part. The waiting. The not knowing if I was being watched, or if I was just unraveling out there alone. By late afternoon, I told myself I'd leave in the morning. One more night. Just one. I don't know why that felt important. Like finishing something I'd started, even if I couldn't say what that was anymore. That evening, the smell came first. Wet fur and something metallic underneath, like rust or old blood. It drifted in through the cracks before the sun fully set. I noticed it while I was sitting at the table, hands wrapped around a cup that had long gone cold. My body reacted before my mind did. Muscles tightened, breathing slowed. That instinct you don't question, the one that says something is wrong in a way you can't fix. I stood up without making a sound and moved toward the window. I told myself not to look, that if I didn't see anything, it wasn't real yet. But I looked anyway. Of course I did. At first I didn't see it. Just trees, layered shadows, the last bit of light slipping between branches. Then something shifted. Not forward, not out into the clearing. Just a slight adjustment, like a weight being transferred from one leg to another. And suddenly it was there. Not fully visible, but enough. Too tall for anything that should have been out there. The outline wrong in ways I couldn't process fast enough. Shoulders too broad. Head angled in a way that didn't match the body. I remember focusing on the eyes because they were the only thing that felt certain. They caught what little light was left and held it, and they were looking straight at me. Not curious, not startled, just aware. I don't remember deciding to step back. I was just suddenly farther from the window, my heart hitting my ribs hard enough to hurt. It didn't rush the cabin, didn't make a sound. It just stayed there, at the edge, like it understood distance in a way I didn't. Like it knew exactly how far it could be without losing me. I waited for it to move, to break the tension, but it didn't. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Time didn't feel normal anymore. Eventually, it shifted again, slow, controlled, and disappeared behind the trees. I didn't breathe properly until it was gone, and even then, the smell lingered. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my back against the wall, staring at the door like it might open on its own. Every small sound felt amplified, wood settling, wind brushing against the cabin, or maybe not wind. There were moments when I thought I heard it again, closer this time, just beyond the walls. A scrape, a soft exhale. Once I was sure something brushed against the side of the cabin, slow enough that it wasn't an accident. I kept telling myself it was testing, learning, and that thought, more than anything, made it hard to stay still. Because if it was learning me, then it wasn't done. Sometime before dawn, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for daylight. I wasn't going to give it another chance to come closer. I packed in the dark, hands shaking, dropping things I didn't bother to pick up. I told myself that once I stepped outside, I'd run straight to the truck and not look back. That if I didn't look, it couldn't be there. That was the lie I needed. When I opened the door, the cold hit me first, then the smell, stronger than before, fresh. My stomach turned before my eyes adjusted, and then I saw the prints. Not at the edge of the clearing anymore, not even halfway. They stopped just a few steps from the door. I didn't hear it move. That's the part that stays with me. I should have heard something that close. Breathing, footsteps, anything. But the forest was silent in a way that felt wrong, like everything else had decided to stay out of it. I remember taking one step forward, then another, like if I moved slowly enough, I wouldn't trigger something. My eyes kept drifting to the tree line, expecting it to be there again, waiting. It wasn't, not where I could see. I reached the truck, fumbled with the keys, almost dropped them, and right before I opened the door, I felt it. That awareness again, that certainty that I wasn't alone. I looked back. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me needed to confirm it was real. Maybe because not knowing felt worse. And there it was, closer than before. Not at the trees this time, but just beyond where the clearing began to narrow. fully visible now, standing upright in a way no animal should, the proportions wrong, stretched between something human and something that wasn't. Its head tilted slightly, like it was studying me, like it recognized me. And those eyes, they weren't just reflecting light anymore. They were holding it, fixed on me with a kind of patience that made everything else feel rushed and temporary. I got in the truck. I don't remember starting it. I just remember the engine already running and the cabin shrinking in the rearview mirror as I drove. I didn't stop. Not for hours. Not until the trees thinned out and the world started to look normal again. But even then, it didn't feel normal. Because the last thing I saw before the road curved out of sight, it hadn't chased me. It hadn't needed to. It just stood there, watching, as if it already knew something I didn't. And sometimes, when it's too quiet where I am now, I think about that distance, how it kept getting smaller each night. And I can't shake the feeling that I left before it had to take the final step. I didn't tell you everything before. I couldn't. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because saying it out loud makes it feel closer again. And I needed distance. I still do. But if I stop now, it doesn't make sense. That thing out there didn't just happen to me. It followed a pattern. And I think the worst part isn't what it did, it's what it wanted. I told you I left before sunrise, that I didn't look back again after I saw it standing there. That's true. But what I didn't say is that something changed the moment I got in the truck. Not outside, inside. The fear didn't go away when I drove off. It shifted, became something quieter, heavier, like a thought I couldn't finish forming. I kept checking the mirrors, over and over. Not because I saw it, but because I expected to. The road stretched on for miles, empty, familiar in the way normal things are supposed to feel. But none of it settled me. I had this growing certainty that distance wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. At one point, maybe an hour in, I pulled over. I don't even remember deciding to. My hands just tightened on the wheel, and suddenly I was stopped on the side of the road, engine idling too loud in the silence. I told myself I needed to breathe, that I was just coming down from it. But that wasn't it. I stepped out, the cold air hitting my face again, grounding me for a second. And then I smelled it. Faint. Not like at the cabin. Not strong. But there. Just enough that I couldn't pretend it was memory. I checked the back of the truck. Empty. I checked the ground around me. Nothing. No prints this time. No sign it had followed physically. And that should have helped. It didn't. Because it meant something worse. It meant it didn't need to follow me the way I understood following. I got back in and drove harder after that. Faster than I should have on those roads. I just needed to reach somewhere that felt occupied, alive. Like the presence of other people could cancel it out somehow. When I finally hit the outskirts of a town, I didn't stop right away. I drove through it once. Then again. Lights in windows, cars parked along the street. Normal life, uninterrupted. It almost made me laugh. The contrast was too sharp. Like I had stepped out of something that didn't belong to the same world. I found a gas station. Stayed inside longer than I needed to. Bought things I didn't want just to have a reason to stand there, under fluorescent lights, pretending I wasn't still listening for something outside. No one noticed anything was wrong. That part stuck with me. I kept waiting for someone to look at me differently, like they could see it on me, smell it the way I could. But I was just another guy passing through. That should have reassured me. Instead, it made me feel isolated in a different way. Like whatever had happened out there wasn't something you could share. Not really. I got a room that night. Cheap place, nothing special. 4 walls, a bed, a lock that clicked a little too easily. I checked it 3 times anyway. Drew the curtains, turned on the TV just for noise. I didn't care what was playing. I just needed something constant, something human. I told myself I'd sleep, that exhaustion would take over eventually. And it did, for a while. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night, not from a sound. That would have been easier to explain. I woke up because of the silence. The TV had cut to a black screen, some kind of signal loss, and the room felt wrong, too still. That same stillness from the cabin, but contained, pressed into a smaller space. I didn't move at first. I just listened, heart slow, then faster as the seconds stretched. Then I smelled it again, stronger than in the truck, not as strong as the cabin, but enough. Enough that I knew it wasn't in my head. I sat up slowly, eyes adjusting to the dark. The curtains were still drawn. The door was still closed. Nothing out of place. But the feeling, it was the same. That awareness, like something had settled just outside the boundary of what I could see. I didn't go to the window. I learned that much. Some part of me understood that looking made it real, in a way I couldn't take back. So I stayed on the bed, every muscle locked, staring at the outline of the door. Waiting. I don't know for what. A sound, a movement, proof that I wasn't just unraveling. There was a moment, I don't know how long in, where I thought I heard something in the hallway. Soft, measured. Not footsteps exactly, more like a shift of weight. Then nothing. I held my breath without realizing it, counted seconds in my head just to have something to hold on to. And then, just as quietly, it was gone. Or it moved somewhere I couldn't track. I didn't sleep after that. Morning came like a release I didn't trust. Light slipped under the curtains, and the room started to feel normal again, piece by piece. The smell faded. The pressure lifted. I almost convinced myself it had been a dream layered on top of everything else. Almost. Until I checked the door. There were marks on the wood. Not deep. Not gouged like you'd expect from claws. Just impressions. Long, uneven, like something had rested there. Pressed, not struck. I ran my fingers over them, and the surface felt warmer than the rest of the door. That's the part I can't explain. It should have been cold. Everything else was. I left immediately after that. Didn't bother with breakfast, didn't check out properly. Just got in the truck and kept moving. The farther I got from that place, the more the world started to feel real again. Predictable. Safe in the way we pretend things are safe because we need them to be. But something stayed with me. Not the smell, not exactly. That faded. Not the fear either. Fear spikes and drops. This didn't. It settled. Like a weight you stop noticing until you try to move without it. I started catching myself in small moments, looking at reflections a second too long, pausing before entering a room, like I expected something to already be there, listening to silence the way I used to listen for noise. And then there's the other part, the one I still don't know what to do with. It never rushed me. Not once. It didn't chase, didn't attack, didn't force anything. It just got closer. Night by night, step by step, like it was following a process, like there was a point it was trying to reach. And I left before it got there. That's what keeps me up now. Not what it did, but what would have happened if I'd stayed one more night. Because I don't think it was hunting me. I think it was waiting for me to understand something, and I left before I did. I tried to move on. That's the part you're supposed to believe comes next. You leave something behind, you put distance between you and it, and eventually it fades into a story you tell yourself less and less. But this didn't fade. It settled. It waited. The first few days after felt almost normal. I stayed busy on purpose. Noise helped. People helped, even if I didn't talk much. As long as something filled the space, I didn't have to think about the quiet. Because the quiet was where it lived now. Not out there anymore. Closer. It started small, little things. I'd wake up before my alarm, no reason, just aware. Like something had already been watching me for a while. I'd sit up, listen, expect that same unnatural silence. But everything sounded fine. Pipes in the walls, distant traffic, normal life bleeding through. And still, something felt off. Like I'd missed something important by opening my eyes too late. Then the smell came back. Not strong, never strong like the cabin. Just enough to register, then disappear when I focused on it. I checked everything the first time. Trash, clothes, the hallway outside. Nothing. No source. It didn't linger long enough to trace. Just a reminder. That's what it felt like. Not presence, memory, forced into the present. I started avoiding mirrors after a while. Not completely, just less. There were moments where I'd catch my reflection and hesitate, like I wasn't sure it would match. And once, just once, I thought it didn't. Just for a second. My body moved, but something about the timing felt off. Like a delay too small to measure but too wrong to ignore. I laughed it off. I had to. But I didn't check again. Sleep got worse, not because of dreams. I didn't dream about it. That would have been easier. It was the moments right before sleep that changed. That edge where your thoughts start to drift and your body lets go. That's when it felt closest. Like if I slipped too far, I'd lose track of where I was, and something else would take that space. One night, I almost spoke. I was lying there, staring at the ceiling, feeling that pressure build in the quiet. And without thinking, I opened my mouth, like I was about to say something to it. Not call out, not ask for help, just respond. The way you do when someone's been standing there long enough that silence feels rude. I caught myself before any sound came out, but the instinct stayed. That reflex to acknowledge it. That's when I understood something I wish I didn't. It wasn't getting closer anymore. It didn't have to. I stopped pretending after that. You can only ignore something for so long before the effort of denial becomes louder than the thing itself. And this, whatever it was, it had learned the rhythm of me. Not just where I was, but how I was. When I was most alone. When I was quiet enough to notice. I started testing it. Not out of courage, don't mistake it for that. It was desperation. I needed rules, patterns, something I could hold on to that made this feel less like I was losing my mind. So one night, I did the opposite of everything my instincts told me. I turned everything off. Lights, TV, phone. I sat in the dark and waited. At first, nothing. Just the normal sounds of an apartment building settling into the night. A distant door closing, pipes ticking behind the walls. My own breathing louder than it should have been. I almost convinced myself that I'd imagined all of it. That I'd pushed myself too far out there in the woods and brought something back that wasn't real. Then the silence dropped. Not gradually, not naturally. It just fell into place. Like a switch had been flipped somewhere I couldn't see. Every background sound cut off at once. No pipes, no distant movement. Even the faint hum of electricity seemed to disappear. I felt it in my chest before I fully registered it in my ears. And then, the smell. Stronger than it had ever been since the cabin. Not overwhelming, just undeniable. Close. I didn't move. That was the rule I made for myself. If I reacted, if I broke first, then I'd learn nothing. My hands were shaking, but I kept them still, pressed against my legs. My eyes adjusted slowly, shapes in the dark becoming edges, outlines, familiar things turned unfamiliar. The doorway. That's where my focus landed, not because I saw something right away, but because I couldn't look anywhere else. It felt wrong, like the space there wasn't empty, even though it should have been. I stared at it long enough that my vision started to blur, trying to force something into clarity. And then it shifted. Not a full movement, not a step, just a change in shape that shouldn't have been possible if nothing was there. Something tall enough to interrupt the frame of the doorway without crossing it. I didn't see details, not like at the cabin. This was worse. This was absence shaped like something real. My throat tightened before I realized I was holding my breath again. Every part of me wanted to look away, to break the line of sight and pretend the room was empty again. But I didn't. I needed to know if it would do more. It didn't come closer. That was the pattern. That was the rule I finally understood. It only moved when I wasn't looking. The moment I blinked, just once, too fast to stop it, the shape was gone. The doorway was empty again. The silence cracked, just slightly, like the world was trying to restart around me. And the smell faded. Not all at once, just enough to make me question if it had been that strong to begin with. I stayed there for a long time after that, longer than I can measure, trying to decide if I'd proven something, or if something had proven me. Because if it only moved when I wasn't looking, then every moment I wasn't aware of it was a moment it was getting closer again. After that night, I stopped testing it, not because I got my answer, but because I understood the cost of asking the wrong questions. There's a difference between curiosity and invitation. I crossed that line without realizing it, and whatever this thing is, it noticed. The days started to blur. Not in a dramatic way, nothing obvious. That's what made it worse. Everything looked normal on the surface. I went through routines, spoke when I had to, nodded at the right moments. But underneath that, something kept slipping. Small gaps in time. Moments where I couldn't account for a few seconds, then a minute, then more. At first I blamed exhaustion, stress, lack of sleep. That's the reasonable explanation, right? That your brain starts skipping when you push it too far. But the gaps didn't feel like blank space. They felt occupied, like something had happened in them, something I just wasn't allowed to keep. I started noticing it in reflections again, not the delay from before, something else. I'd pass by a mirror and catch myself standing still when I was sure I'd been moving. Or I'd stop and look directly, and everything would match, perfectly normal. But the feeling wouldn't go away, like I'd interrupted something mid-action. One evening I tested that without meaning to. I was washing my hands, staring at my reflection the way you do when your mind drifts. And for a second, just a second, I looked down. That's it. Nothing dramatic. Just a break in eye contact. When I looked back up, my hands were dry. Completely dry. I don't remember reaching for a towel. I don't remember the motion at all. But there it was, time missing again, filled with something I couldn't access. And the worst part wasn't the confusion, it was the smell. Faint. Close. I didn't finish anything after that. Didn't turn off the water. Didn't look back at the mirror. I just stepped away like I hadn't noticed. Like pretending it was normal would somehow make it less real. That's the pattern I fell into. Not confronting, not reacting, just existing around it. Because every time I focused on it, it got clearer. And every time it got clearer, it felt closer. Sleep became something I avoided more than needed. Not because I was afraid of what I'd see, but because I was starting to understand what sleep meant. Hours of not looking. Hours of giving it space to move without interruption. I'd stay awake until my body forced me down, then wake up with that same awareness already there, like I'd never really been alone. And then came the night I slipped. Not fully, not like losing control, just a mistake. I was sitting in the dark again, not intentionally this time. The lights were off because I hadn't bothered to turn them on. My mind was somewhere else, drifting, unfocused. That dangerous middle ground where you're not fully aware, not fully present. And I blinked, longer than usual. That's all it took. When my eyes opened, the room felt smaller. Not physically, just occupied. The air heavier, like something had taken up space it didn't have before. I didn't move right away, didn't even breathe, because I already knew. I wasn't alone in the room anymore. I could feel where it was without looking directly, off to the side, not in front of me like before, closer, too close. And for the first time since the cabin, I heard it. Not a growl, not breathing. A shift, weight, adjusting slightly, like it had settled into position. My eyes started to turn toward it on their own, slow, careful. Like if I did it right, I'd control what I saw, like I'd be ready. But something stopped me. Not physically, not like a force, just a certainty. Deep, immediate, undeniable. If I looked at it now, it wouldn't stay where it was. I wish I could tell you I stayed still, that I held on to that instinct and kept my eyes forward until morning came and everything reset. But that's not how it went. There's a point where fear stops protecting you and starts pushing you toward the very thing you're trying to avoid. And I was past that point. I turned. Not fast, not sudden. Slow enough that every fraction of movement felt like a decision I could still undo. But I didn't stop. I needed to see it clearly, needed to break whatever hold it had by forcing it into something real, something defined. That was the mistake, because the moment my eyes found it, it didn't stay still this time. It was closer than anything should have been without me noticing. Not across the room, not near the doorway. Right there, within reach if I'd lifted my hand. Tall, hunched slightly now, like it didn't need to stretch itself to appear bigger anymore. The shape was wrong in ways my mind couldn't fully process. Limbs too long, joints angled just off enough to feel deliberate. And its head, not fully animal, not fully anything I could name. But the eyes were the same, locked on me, aware. Waiting. For a second, just a second, nothing moved. Not me, not it. That same balance from the cabin, but shattered by distance. Too close to pretend, too real to deny. And then it did something I wasn't ready for. It leaned in. Not aggressively, not like an attack. Just a slow, controlled shift forward, closing what little space remained. I felt it before anything else, the air changing, the smell hitting harder than it ever had. Wet fur, metal, something deeper underneath that made my chest tighten like I couldn't get enough air. My body reacted too late. I jerked back, breaking eye contact for half a second. That was all it needed. When I looked again, it wasn't where it had been. It wasn't in front of me anymore. It was behind me. I didn't see it move. I didn't hear anything. Just that impossible repositioning, like space itself had bent around it. And this time, I felt something touch me. Light, brief, across my shoulder. Not a strike, not a grab, a confirmation. I broke then, stumbled forward, knocking into the table, turning without thinking, trying to put distance between me and something that didn't follow distance the way I understood it. I didn't look back again. I couldn't. Every instinct screamed that if I saw it move again, if I watched it shift that close one more time, Something in me wouldn't come back from it. I got out. I don't remember unlocking the door, don't remember the hallway, the stairs, any of it. Just cold air hitting my face and the world snapping back into place around me. Noise, light, people somewhere in the distance, normal things forcing their way back in. I didn't stop running until I couldn't feel that pressure behind me anymore. But it didn't end there. Because later, when I finally slowed down, when I convinced myself I'd put enough space between me and whatever that was, I realized something I can't undo. It didn't chase me. Not once. Not at the cabin. Not in the room. It never needed to. And I think I finally understood why. It wasn't trying to catch me. It was trying to reach something inside me. And I let it get close enough to do it. I don't know how much time has passed since then. Days blur. Nights feel longer than they should. Things function on the surface. I move, I speak, I exist the way I'm supposed to. But there's something underneath now that doesn't line up the way it used to. The gaps are worse. Not just seconds anymore. Sometimes I find myself somewhere I don't remember walking to, standing still, mid-action, like I've been paused and restarted without warning. And every time it happens, there's that same trace left behind. That smell. Faint. Close. I don't see it the way I used to. Not clearly. Not fully. But sometimes. In reflections. In dark glass. In the edge of my vision. There's a shape that doesn't belong to me. Not separate. Not standing behind me. Aligned. Like it's learned how to fit. And the worst part is, I don't always feel afraid anymore. That sharp, immediate fear, it's fading, replaced by something quieter. Something that feels almost like recognition. Like my mind is starting to accept it, the way you accept something you've lived with long enough. That's what scares me now. Not that it's still there, but that it doesn't feel like it shouldn't be. Sometimes I catch myself almost turning too quickly, like I expect to see through it instead of at it. Like there's a perspective I haven't fully reached yet. And every time that thought crosses my mind, I stop. I force myself back. I remind myself of what it felt like when it was still outside of me. Because I don't think it's trying to get closer anymore. I think it already did. And whatever step it was waiting to take back at the cabin, I don't think it needed to take it out there. I think it was always meant to happen here. And lately, when it gets quiet, I don't feel watched. I feel accompanied. I don't fight it anymore. That's the part I hate admitting, but it's the only honest way to say it. There was a time when I measured everything, distance, silence, reflections, the seconds between blinking. I tried to control it, tried to understand it. But you can't fight something that doesn't follow the same rules. You just wear yourself down until there's nothing left to resist with. Now, I just notice. The gaps still happen. I lose time in small pieces, like something is borrowing me and putting me back slightly out of place. I'll be mid-step, mid-thought, mid-breath, and then I'm somewhere else in the same room, or the same moment feels like it's already happened once before. And every time, there's that trace, that smell, fainter now, closer. I don't look for it in mirrors anymore. Not because it's gone, but because I already know it's there. Sometimes I catch the edge of it anyway, not separate, not behind me, in sync. Like whatever it was trying to reach, it found it, and I let it. That's the part that stays with me, not fear, not confusion, guilt. Because there were moments, small ones, where I could have left earlier, could have looked away, could have stopped pushing. But I didn't. I stayed. I tested it. I answered something that never spoke out loud. And now, whatever line there was between me and it, I don't know where it is anymore. I still remember the cabin sometimes, the quiet, the way I thought it meant I was alone. I think about that a lot, about how wrong I was, because the quiet didn't mean empty, it meant waiting. And now, when everything around me settles, when the noise drops and the world goes still, I don't feel fear first. I feel recognition, like I've heard this silence before, like I know what comes next. And I don't think it's coming from outside anymore. I think, if there's anything left of it to come closer, it's not moving toward me. It's moving as me.